All right, we're diving into a pretty provocative idea today. What if our absolute love of travel isn't the big virtue we all think it is? We're going to unpack the case against travel, and honestly, it might just make you rethink your next vacation.
So let's start with a phrase you see everywhere, right? Dating apps, social media, you name it. It's supposed to signal that you're curious, that you have a passion for life. It's this simple little way we try to tell people who we are.
But what if saying I love to travel is, well, completely useless information? The whole argument is that since pretty much everyone enjoys traveling, saying you do tells us absolutely nothing special about you. It's like we're declaring pride in something that might not actually be an achievement at all.
Okay, so first let's just look at the standard way of thinking. We're all basically taught to see travel as this path to making ourselves better. It's not just treated like a hobby, it's seen as a real personal accomplishment.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This core belief that just by going somewhere new, we automatically become better, more interesting people. Way back in the 18th century, Samuel Johnson said, travel gives a person a certain luster, and we still treat it just like that, like a badge of honor.
But not everyone buys into this. In fact, there's this small but really vocal group of thinkers who've argued the complete opposite, that this kind of travel can actually turn us into the worst versions of ourselves. And this whole idea is called the traveler's delusion.
I mean, G.K. Chesterton just put it so bluntly. Travel narrows the mind. His point was that instead of opening us up to big universal truths, it just makes us skim the surface of things. It actually limits our perspective instead of expanding it. Emerson was just as skeptical. He saw all this aimless travel as an escape for people who just can't find meaning or happiness in their own day-to-day lives. To him, it was a total fantasy, a fool's paradise, where we pretend we're finding ourselves by just running away from where we actually are.
But the writer Fernando Pessoa, he delivered maybe the most brutal critique of all. He believed that this constant need for new sights and sounds was just a substitute for having a rich inner life. That if we could truly feel and imagine things, we wouldn't need a plane ticket to do the work for us.
Now, to be super clear, these critics aren't against all travel. No way. Their real target is something much more specific. Tourism. You know, the kind of travel we do just for the sake of experiencing a change, just to collect cool sights and stories. And this difference is so important. So on one side, you've got tourism, which is all about chasing down the interesting. But on the other, you have purposeful travel, moving for a job, for school, for love, which has a real, concrete goal that goes beyond just seeing a new place. So this brings us to this really big irony. The tourist travels hoping to experience change, but in the end, the only thing that really changes is the destination they visit, and, not always for the better. The author of the essay we're looking at gives this perfect personal example. She talks about visiting a falcon hospital in Abu Dhabi. It's not that she had a deep passion for falconry. She went because it was just what one does there as a tourist. She had no real intention of letting it actually change her. And here's the crucial point. Places like this Falcon Hospital, which literally get awards for excellence in tourism, they end up being shaped by visitors who are completely untouched by the experience. We become these unchanged changers, altering entire cultures while we stay exactly the same. Okay, this leads to another huge problem: the tourist's constant obsessive search for an authentic experience. And the argument here is that this very search is what makes a truly authentic experience totally impossible. The writer Walker Percy had this great example of a tourist at the Grand Canyon. They don't actually see the canyon for what it is. They just see it through the filter of a postcard they've already seen. The real, raw experience is lost because they're just there to check if reality matches the prepackaged image. This insecurity is just perfectly shown in another one of Percy's examples. He talks about a couple who find a real village festival, but they can't just enjoy it. They actually feel this need to bring in an expert, an ethnologist, to basically certify that their experience was genuinely authentic. And that right there is the ultimate trap. By always looking for someone else's approval, from a postcard, a guidebook, an expert, the tourist gives up their own power to just feel something and decide for themselves. This so-called openness to experience actually stops a real personal one from ever happening. Think about it. Things like moving to a new country or starting a new career. Those experiences fundamentally change who we are. But tourism, it's designed to be temporary. We leave with the full expectation of coming right back to our lives exactly as we left them. The essay uses this really powerful metaphor, a boomerang. You throw it, it goes on this thrilling journey, but its entire point is to come back to the spot where it started. And the argument is that travel works the same way. We leave, fully expecting to come back to the same life, same beliefs, same job, totally unchanged. Now, you're probably thinking, well, my travels were different. They were truly transformative. But the whole theory of the traveler's delusion says we can't see it in ourselves. So try this. Think about your friends. After their supposedly life-changing trips, do you actually see a fundamental shift in who they are, or do they just have a bunch of new stories to tell? And that brings us to the final and maybe the most profound question of all. If travel is mostly just for fun and doesn't really change us, why do we all treat it with such reverence? Why do we insist it's this virtuous, deeply meaningful thing to do? The mystery isn't that we like vacations. Of course we do. They're fun. The real mystery is why we feel this need to puff them up into something so significant. Why do we have to justify our fun as some kind of self-improvement? Well, the essay offers a pretty startling and deeply existential answer. Travel acts like a punctuation mark in the long and sometimes monotonous sentence of our life. It breaks up that terrifying timeline of just more and more of the same and then death. It gives us a before the trip and an after the trip to structure our time on Earth. And here it is, the final, kind of mind-bending thought. When we travel, we're often anonymous, we're disconnected from our responsibilities, we're basically a nobody doing nothing of real consequence. The argument is that this feeling is actually a little preview of our own eventual annihilation, but it's cleverly disguised as an exciting and meaningful adventure. So maybe the real journey we're all on isn't about seeing the world, but about finding a clever way to look away from our own mortality.